Hey, what's going on? I know I don't have a big following, and I know I don't have a whole lot of friends, and that's partially why I'm making this video. I just don't have a whole lot of people I can reach out to get a genuine insight or unbiased opinion or perspective on what I have to say. And with this past election, I just really want to give my opinion on a few things that keep bugging me. Like, they just keep needling at me. Like some things, like some really stark contrasts. So I don't have a lot of time. I'm on my lunch break, and that's how much this is affecting me. I'm on my lunch break. I have to, I'm probably not going to eat any food because I'm just thinking about this, but I shouldn't let it get to me like this. But let's just go off. Abortion. So I am a Christian. I was raised in the church. I grew up Baptist. I grew up having nightmares almost every other, very vivid nightmares, night terrors almost every other night about the rapture happening right under me, never getting to be an adult, whatnot and what have you, things along the lines of that. And I've been haven't been a devout Christian my whole life. Once I got out of high school and I joined the Army, I really started to stray from my path with the Lord a lot, but after I got out, things had to get really bad, but things got bad, and that pushed me right back to the Lord. And I try to do everything I do and everything I say to be edifying and for the glory of the Lord. And so when it comes to something like birth control, I can 150% understand how a God-fearing Christian believes, knows, has conviction that it is wrong, that it is not something that God intended for us to do, to be on this planet. That being said, also as a Christian, as a true who believes what's in the book of God's living word, I believe that God is telling the truth when he tells us that he will never force himself on us. He will never make us fall in line to do his will. We have to make that choice. We have to ask for that salvation. We have to humble ourselves. We have to recognize his authority to get that. Because it is a blessing. What will could be higher than that of the Lord? So here is where I get caught up with the question of abortion and my faith. I understand it could be wrong, but the Lord himself will never force his laws on me. The God of this universe and creator of all will never force himself on me. So what right do I have to force my perspective and my views on someone else? Now, that point being said, the Lord did give us instruction on this. Are you ready to hear it? I know you've heard it a million times. It's love your neighbor as you love yourself. We might not agree with what our neighbor is doing. We might outright say it's wrong. But God did not tell us in the New Testament, with our new covenant, he did not tell us to go over there and put them in chains or slay them or belittle them or berate them or accuse them until they fall into line with how we feel they should behave or act or live their life. He said we should love them regardless. And that's how the world will know his people, by our love. Not by our hate, not by our condemnation, not by our accusations. That's just one thing. The Lord tells us not to judge. I mean, I try to completely demolish my pride and completely humble myself to the word of the Lord, and that's what it says. Another thing about abortion is, think about, if I can compare it to anything, I want to compare today's abortion problem with the DARE program. Do you remember the war against drugs? How many kids did the war against drugs get off of drugs? How many people stopped doing drugs because of the war on drugs? I'll sit here and wait because I remember a DEA agent coming to my school with a gun and doing presentations and whatnot, but our neighborhood still had a whole lot of drug in it. And that's the thing. I remember before Planned Parenthood was prevalent in my early childhood, I remember every week there was a story about a teenage girl who did her own abortion with a hanger, or who went to some sketchy van to get an operation done because they were too ashamed to let anyone know that they were pregnant. Because, people get pregnant from not only just, deciding to have sex, but people are ashamed to let people know that they've been raped. People are ashamed to let people know that they've been taken advantage of by someone who's supposed to love them and whatnot, or what have you. So what I don't understand is we're going to make abortion illegal because we feel like that's the solution to an issue that we don't agree with. But I don't understand how having teenage girls have babies in alleyways and stick metallic objects in their orifices out of fear and shame and laid up bloody and throwing babies in dumpsters out of the shame of having a baby out of wedlock is better than having a facility where they can go and get that done medically. I don't understand how that's a solution, to go back to the days where there was no help for this, where the only help for this was to be shamed and to maybe, take care of it on your own, or get someone who's may or may not be licensed in the back of a dirty van do it for you. Or hey, maybe even just have the baby without any type of health care because you were too scared to tell anyone that you were pregnant in the first place, and maybe just toss it away. That sounds like a better plan than Planned Parenthood, right? Well, obviously I'm using sarcasm. I don't do that often, but this topic is just so morbid and icky. I feel like I need to take a shower thinking about that. But anyway, so another thing that was a really big driving decision maker for people during this election is immigration. And before I give you my opinion on immigration, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I love guns. I absolutely love to go shooting. Right out of high school, I joined the Army. Before that, I was a Boy Scout. One of the first badges I ever got was my rifleman badge. My next badge right after that was my archery badge. I love sending dense matter through the air towards a target. It could probably be a slingshot, and I'd be like a kid in a candy shop. Now these days, especially in my state, gun control regulations are a little bit more strict, but I'm still able to buy things that will make me absolutely happy. For instance, on my bucket list right now, I have a 50 caliber bolt action anti-material rifle. That's full on military hardware, but I'm still able to purchase that. The compromise is I can't have the semi-automatic version. I can send military artillery downrange. They just don't want me to be able to send lots of military artillery downrange at once. And I can understand that from a civilian application, but even then, if I really wanted to, I could fill out a couple forms and maybe wait 3 years and still be able to have that capability to get rapid fire military. Well, not in this state. Well, but anyway, the way that I like to equate this argument of, or this argument against gun control that a lot of people who probably voted for Trump will probably still use to this day is when you enact sweeping regulation and sweeping bans against guns, the people it's going to affect aren't the criminals. It's not going to affect the people who are already hiding their guns, who are already breaking the law. It's going to affect the people who went through the proper channels to buy their guns. It's going to affect the people whose guns the government knows about. It's going to affect the people who inherited their guns from their great-great-grandfather, or the people who went through the proper channels to get their CPO. Those are the people it's going to affect. The people who mean right, and the people who are actually trying to do the right thing. The people, and even if the government knew about the guns of the criminals, are the criminals going to hand over their weapons so easily, do you think? I don't really think so, especially not in this country. So why would it be any different when we're speaking about human beings, right? If we enact sweeping blanket mass deportations and regulations against immigration, the people it's going to hurt are the people who are here on work visas, or the people who are here on school visas, or the people on foreign exchange programs, or the people who are naturalized citizens whose parents or great-great-parents may have came over here illegally, but they were born here and have known no other country but this country. They speak English. They've gone to school with our kids. They believe in American values. Those are the people who will suffer. The good-meaning, the well-intentioned, and the people who go through the proper channels. People who are waiting on asylum. Geez, and that's not even their fault. The people waiting on asylum, that's our own bureaucracy holding that up. That's not even them, gunking it up. That's just us. And they get punished for it. The right-meaning people. And the people who aren't going to get punished are the people who are already here illegally. The people the government can't find already. The people who are already here on the underground. Those are the people we want gone, right? How is the government going to find them after sweeping laws are enacted? Did the new law increase their ability to find illegals? No, all it's going to do is they're going to go door to door and they're going to pull people out of their house, even the people who just look like they shouldn't be here. Those people are going to get caught up in this too. And it's just blaring hypocrisy. Glaring hypocrisy. The way how we can say that about our guns, but we can't say that about human beings who are not only American, but who are also people aspiring to be American. And that kind of lets me know that it's not really about the issues. It's not really about the issues when you can let an injustice like that fly under the radar. When you can have, under the last Trump administration, children, little babies, separated from their parents and put in cages. In cages. Surrounded by men with fully automatic weapons pushing children around. Now, I never claimed to be better than the average person at knowing right from wrong, but that should give you if you are a Christian, that should just hit your gut, right? Because in the living word of God, we were told to welcome the stranger in our lands. Were we not? It seems like, and I know not everyone's Christian, but I have to speak this from my perspective. This is my opinion, right? This is from my Christian opinion, right? This isn't even an opinion anymore because it's in black and white ink, commanded to all Christians. You are supposed to love your neighbor and welcome the stranger amongst you. The God didn't say, make the stranger conform to how you want them to think. God wants you to minister to them, right? We're supposed to minister to people. We're not supposed to force them to change. We're supposed to minister to them to get them to make the decision to change, because God wants to change hearts. Well, let me not get too off topic. There's one last thing I want to talk about. The division of this vote. So the facts of this vote are the overwhelming majority of black men and women voted for Kamala Harris. And the overwhelming majority of white women and men voted for Trump. The division of this vote reminds me of a scenario that could very much happen throughout this entire United States. The majority of people in this country went to public school. So I want you to imagine you're in high school, middle school, even elementary school, whatever. And let's say you don't have many friends or whatever. Maybe you do have a lot of friends, but every day at lunch, you meet at the same lunch table with the same two guys. And you talk and you have your lunch and you talk about life and you talk about, where you hope to be, and you're always supportive and you're always, friends with each other. And you always talk to each other about your lives and whatnot. So imagine if you're talking to your friends. You had a bully in that school. And imagine if you were telling your friends for years about that bully, about how he tries to make your life a living hell, about how he always talks down to you, about how he's always trying to get people to fight you, or he's trying to fight you himself, and how you just believe that person is an obstacle of evil put in the way of your progress, put in the way of your blessings, put in the way to try to block you from receiving your blessings and your highest good from God. Now imagine if after all those years of opening up about that to these guys, one day you walk into that lunchroom and you see your two friends sitting at a new lunch table with that bully. Would you go sit at that table with them? And you're like, hey, what's, and deal with that awkwardness. Hey, what's going on here? You know what I mean? Or would you go off and sit by yourself and just kind of wonder? Whatever your decision would be, here's the point. We've had almost an entire decade of the majority of the African American and other minority groups yelling and screaming that this guy is a racist, this guy is a bully, this guy's been doing this to us, this guy's going to stand in the way of our progress. And the majority of white people voted for the racist. Now, how does that kid in the lunchroom feel? Walking into that lunchroom the next day, seeing his friends sitting with the bully, like good friends, endorsing him, hand on the shoulder, laughing. It's almost like it's laughing at all the pain that bullies put you through, right to your face. Well, anyway, that's one scenario, and that's another way to put that. The last thing I want to talk about that really stuck with me as a Christian. And I actually wrote this one down. Let me go ahead and see if I can pull this up real quick. I wrote this one on my Facebook page because it really just, when it came to me, when the Lord speaks to you, and sometimes it feels like the Lord is speaking through you. All right, let me just read it out. I'm reminded how the Romans gave the Jewish people a choice to pardon Jesus, the Son of Man, or Barabbas, the murderer. The people chose to pardon Barabbas, blinded by their frustration and manipulated by the false prophets. We lost the living incarnation of God on earth that day because of it. Then I think of how our people picked a convicted felon and liable rapist who was best friends with the sex trafficker and is also backed by the richest man in the world, over someone who practiced law their whole life and spoke only of the good they wanted to create for others. Yeah. That's real tough to meditate on. Well, anyway, if you made it to the end of this, thank you very much for listening. I would like your true opinion on this. I mean, I would really like to hear your your honest to God opinion on this, because it, the only other way I can rationalize what just happened in this country is that people are not just okay for immorality and racism, but they are for it. And that goes against every fiber of my being and what I have tried to live my whole life as. Well, anyway, God bless you. Have a great day. Thanks for listening.
In fact, I don't think it was about issues at all. If you look at policy alone, nearly all of Harris's proposals get majority support, but only half of Trump's did in the recent Washington Post survey. Let's be real. Trump doesn't represent policy, he represents cultural resentment against the changing America. Trump did everything wrong in his campaign, and it didn't matter to the majority of white voters. He got indicted 4 times, got convicted of 34 felonies, lost the debate to Kamala Harris decisively according to all the polls, couldn't articulate any more than concepts of a plan for health care after 10 years of running for president, flip-flopped repeatedly on abortion, refused to answer a basic question about the minimum wage, simulated a lewd sex act on stage, refused to apologize for a speaker at his rally attacking Puerto Ricans and Latinos, joked about shooting the press, picked a running mate who called him America's Hitler, and was outed by his own former chief of staff for saying Hitler did some good things. Nothing mattered because it was never about issues. White America has been lecturing black people about crime, morality, and patriotism for years, and then they vote for a convicted criminal, sex offender, and insurrectionist to be the president. No black person or woman with Trump's track record and 2 impeachments would ever be nominated, much less elected president. That's why it's not about policy, it's about race and gender and the changing America. Donald Trump is the avatar of white supremacy, and the fact that a small but significant percentage of black and brown people were willing to excuse or embrace his racism, sexism, and xenophobia doesn't disprove that. It just reflects how some of us have assimilated into the same white supremacist beliefs. But what happens next is up to us. A lot of people are hurting right now, and many more will be hurt in the years to come if Trump implements his policies. I recommend self-care. Do what you need to take care of yourself, and remember, you are part of a broader community. We have to be there for each other in these trying times. As I said in my final video before the election, this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And no matter what happens in the days to come, I am clear and certain that we are on the right side of history. Don't give up. Live to fight another day.